Hello and welcome to the talkSPORT Fan Network. This is Settle the Score with me, Angelina Kelly. Today we are reacting to Real Madrid's 6-3 aggregate win over Manchester City. And joining me now are Farouk from Let's Be Real and Amos Murphy from the City Ramble. Let's get straight into this. Farouk, were you surprised at how easily your Real Madrid side dispatched Manchester City?
Yeah, it was a shock, honestly, because it was a game that we've played, across the past 4 seasons, and it's always been a very high, profile, very intense game. But the game last night, or even I would say across the two legs, really felt something different. It felt like Real Madrid like dominating teams as we used to do in Europe. But I don't think we've ever dominated City across the past 4 seasons. So yesterday was definitely a shock.
Amos, how would you sum up the Man City performance last night? I mean, it was painful to watch, even not as a City fan.
Yeah, it was toothless. It was quite the domination from Real Madrid. And I mean, to sort of piggyback on the first question, my only surprise is how people didn't see this sort of performance coming from City, because it's happened in the Premier League already. It's happened in the Champions League. It's happened in the different competitions. This is kind of where City are this season. So as soon as they got through the league phase and it was being paired up against Real Madrid, that in my opinion, that was it. Kind of just wanted something to be proud of in the first leg. We had that for 80 minutes, and then, as has always been the case this season, the collapse comes. So yeah, very little surprises from me. Performance was terrible, and in a way, kind of glad to be out, because it might just stop a bit of the bleeding.
Glad to be out of the Champions League. I never thought I'd hear a City
I
fan
know,
saying
I
that.
know.
I mean, obviously, there's been this massive rivalry with City and Real Madrid over recent years, and of course, a rivalry with Pep Guardiola and Real Madrid as a whole. Farouk, how great is it to see not just Real Madrid getting one over on Pep, but for Carlo Ancelotti to beat Pep Guardiola once again?
I think that's the thing, when you look at the coaches, the elite coaches in the world, that like people talk about the likes of the Peps, the Klopps, the Contes, and what is and what is not. There's always a school of Mourinho. There's a school of Pep, and Ancelotti is one of those coaches that doesn't have a school, but yeah, you can argue he's the most successful coach in Europe. So this game last night was a combination of what Ancelotti stands for. It's always about the players that are at the forefront of the team. Like, he's never the star of the show. People almost forget that he's even there. Like, he's someone who gives the players the platform to show the very best that they can do. And I feel like the game yesterday night was a combination of that. As we saw, he got the front four to defend. It's, you can draw parallels to what Paris Saint-Germain tried to do with, with Messi, Neymar, and Kylian Mbappe unsuccessfully, of course. And you could see last night you have or rather I would say three Ballon d'Ors if I include Jude Bellingham as a front four, and you could see them playing as a team. Unselfishly, uncharacteristically laying balls up for each other. Bringing each other into play, doing the dirty job, and letting each other shine, more or less. And I think this is just a culmination, or rather, this is a vindication of what Carlo Ancelotti he's trying to do, and also it's just a proof that it doesn't always has to be hyper tactical to get things right. You just need to put the players in the very best position to perform at the very best. And you can see even we, as Ansi Murphy was saying, like, you don't expect this from City. But Real Madrid has been missing three of the four starting centre backs as well. We've had really, really abysmal performances in the league as well this season. So that's why we were a bit skeptical, although we know what City were about this season. We also were, a bit skeptical about what we could be. But this is what Carlo does. Carlo never complains. You give him the worst recipes in the world, he finds a way to make the best meal possible.
Yeah, I think that's right with Carlo Ancelotti. It just seems no matter what, he finds a way to make things happen. One player you mentioned there, Kylian Mbappe, he's come under a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny in this season with Real Madrid. People were questioning his capability. We know that Real Madrid fans can be a little bit harsh sometimes. They have a certain standard. Can we say that he's silenced his critics now?
Yeah, I'd say Kylian Mbappe has finally arrived. Like, this is the second hat trick in the space of 2 weeks, against Real Valladolid 2 weeks earlier, and then now against Manchester City. I mean, the point is, like, Real Madrid do not sign players to win the league. We sign players to perform on this kind of nights. And Kylian Mbappe has announced himself on the very highest stage. And because at Real Madrid, you win the league, but you don't win the Champions League, you understand? You win the Champions League, it's about, okay, can you retain the Champions League again next year? So the point is, Kylian Mbappe has come and has performed at the highest level, and not just, the performance from Kylian Mbappe yesterday, was a performance that's goes across the spectrum. You could see he was a winger, he was a center forward, and he was a link-up man as well. So I feel like yesterday, if there was ever a moment in Kylian Mbappe's short Real Madrid career so far, yesterday is the day that he announced to Real Madrid fans that I am here and I am the new Galactico.
I'm sure a lot of Man City fans were watching Mbappe thinking, what if we had him in our team? I mean, it's not been great this season. Pep Guardiola went into this game saying that, we have to give Real Madrid a fright. They didn't come close. I mean, he also had this whole situation where he was lying about City having a 1% chance of going through. As an outsider looking in, I mean, at times it didn't even seem like 1% chance. Does Pep Guardiola's attitude, does it get a bit annoying as City fans, or do you look past it? Or sometimes when he says things like that, is it just a bit frustrating because it's just adding more fuel to the fire almost?
I can see why it would come across as such, but I mean, there are so many times across his City career where you want to doubt the methods, and then at the end of the season, a Premier League title arrives, or a domestic treble, or the treble arrives. So, like, this season, I think everybody since probably the autumn, if not, maybe a little bit earlier, have kind of written it off because the signs were there. The signs were there early that, yes, the club has stood still in the summer. Players who maybe should have been moved on a little bit earlier haven't been. They've tried to eke out the last little bit of energy from the likes of Bernardo Silva, obviously at the time, Kyle Walker, bringing Ilkay Gundogan back as a makeshift signing. If it had been alongside a midfielder in the summer, then you go, fair enough. He's going to play maybe once every few weeks. It wasn't. Obviously, Rodri's injury, blah, blah, blah. All of these factors combine to make this pretty disgusting cocktail that you don't want to go anywhere near. And you just kind of have to say, right, okay, that is it. That's the season, even though it's bizarre to say we're not even in March. And usually this is the time where City's season is starting to kick off and sat here writing it off. But you have to start looking towards next season. Well, I think if we can maybe sort of look at a doubt, Guardiola has never been in a job this long. He's had 4 seasons at Barcelona. He had 3 seasons at Bayern Munich. He's he will have done all of those years combined by the time he leaves City already. But he's going into a 10th season, and that for a man who is so emotional in his work style, I imagine that will start to play its part. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, he's got personal problems this season as well. If he can maybe find a way to just disconnect slightly and refine that love, I think City will be fine. But yeah, I think maybe some of the comments this season have been fueled by that emotional energy. But who am I to judge when he's delivered what he has?
You're a City fan. You can still judge him a little bit. You can still get a bit annoyed. It's okay. I mean, Pep's obviously confirmed that he does want to continue next season. Is there a part of you, and you're amongst friends, you can tell us, is there a part of you that almost wishes he wasn't? As in, like, you know what, he's had this great run. There's talk about, his regime at Manchester City. Players are getting tired. It's not working. Does a part of you think, you know what, if he'd have moved on, it wouldn't have been the end of the world? Or do you believe that he's capable of getting things back on track? Like I say, you're amongst friends. You can tell us if you'd prefer Pep to leave.
I'm going to give you the boring answer and say, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, no, I'm quite delighted he stayed. But I will say on top of that again, that there were times when the contract extension was coming towards an end, purely, and I mean it purely from an entertainment purpose, the prospect of Guardiola leaving was kind of tantalising a little bit because you are stepping into the unknown. However, when he puts pen to paper, he signs on that dotted line, the celebrations are out because it's difficult to convey exactly sort of the feeling around it. But in my opinion, and possibly the opinion of the majority of football fans, this is the greatest coach of all time. So the idea of him potentially rebuilding the side once again, having that money, as we know, he is obviously purely a checkbook manager to go off and work with. That is a really positive prospect. So, look, I don't know. I don't think you can necessarily rule out the fact that whatever happens this season, come the end of the campaign, there's maybe, speaking of 1% chances, a 1% chance he walks away, but he's got a contract until at least the end of next season. So, look, I'm never going to say no to another year of Pep Guardiola. If this is the last one, then this is the last one. But hopefully, fingers crossed, it keeps on going and going and going and going and going.
I mean, Farouk, I could see your face then when he was saying Pep Guardiola, best manager of all time. Let's be honest, the standards of Real Madrid, he'd have been sacked by now, surely.
Definitely.
Real Madrid fans wouldn't be putting up with this, would they?
I definitely agree with you. Like, if this is Real Madrid, because I remember there was a run. I think maybe I'm wrong, but like there was like a run of 9 defeats between November and January or something like that. I mean, that's never gonna hold at Real Madrid, and that's the thing. Like with Pep, like he is the beat and he's the eat. Like he's basically like a heliocentric star of the team. He's okay. We can talk about Haaland and the Kevin De Bruyne and anything, but when you talk about Man City, you talk about Pep Guardiola. Like he is the guy. But for Real Madrid, that's never the case, actually, whatever. No matter how good the coaches, we've seen this with Vicente Del Bosque in the past. We've seen it with Mourinho. We saw this with Carlo Ancelotti during his first stint as well. So for Real Madrid, like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you lose 10 games across the span of 3 months, you're out. No matter how much credit you have in the bank. This is the thing, like, it's not a sentimental team. It's a team that's just built on the here and now. It's all business. Like, Sergio Ramos left, Cristiano Ronaldo left, Iker Casillas left crying. So, like, this is like a team that has no sentiments or, allegiances towards the players or the coaches. Either you're the best in the game or you're just, you might be the best today and, tomorrow, like, you're out of the door. So it's just about the here and now. What you did yesterday is all history.
It might be why Real Madrid have never won a treble. Pep's got 2.
I mean, it's fine. You guys can keep your treble. If I win the 16 Champions League, man, I'm fine with that.
Now. One thing I'm
settle down.
Yeah. Or maybe simmer up, I don't know. I mean, one thing with Real Madrid is with the club, they're able to rebuild and they're able to bring people in at the right times. And I think with Manchester City, a lot of people have maybe been criticising the club and Pep, that a sign of a good manager and a good club is to be able to recognise a rebuild almost before it needs doing. Do you feel like Pep maybe dithering over if he was staying or going, maybe that delayed a rebuild? Do you feel like the club are to blame or Pep's to blame? Because it's quite shocking, this decline, and you would think that they would have realised earlier we need to make some more intelligent signings than bringing someone like Ilkay Gundogan back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the major criticism that I've been parroting this season has been the fact that they allowed it to get into this state. And like, it's so uncharacteristic because it's the one thing City have prided themselves on over the last, decade, basically, is their recruitment and the amount of times people have praised it. You look at Ruben Diaz as a signing, for example. He was probably 3rd, 4th choice on the list when he arrived as a centre-back. So obviously it's taken a while, but I think the issue has been when Guardiola arrived, there was a span of about 5 seasons where he let one of the key men from the previous era, which had plenty of success in itself, go. You had Zabaleta in the first season, Yaya Toure, Vincent Kompany, David Silva, Fernandinho. I think the issue has been the fact that they weren't his signings, they weren't his players, they weren't the ones that he brought in, moulded into the greatest in the world, the greatest in Europe at times. That they were the signings that were already there when he arrived. It was like, he's coming to a new house, it's a nice rug, but I'll keep it for a year or two, then I'll get my own one. And he's not been able to recognise that this rug needs to be sent out as well. So Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, Kyle Walker, dare I say Kevin De Bruyne, the fact that he wasn't playing against Real Madrid probably speaks volumes, because maybe he's finished. I don't know. He's out of contract at the end of the season.
He's done. Them legs are gone. I'm telling you.
He can't move, and it's such a shame, because it's like watching an old family pet who's just can't do it anymore.
Are you suggesting you should put De Bruyne down? Is that what you're saying?
That is not the official opinion of the City Ramble podcast by any means. If any lawyers come knocking, but it is looking like his time in a City shirt is certainly coming towards an end. Which is, look, for me, he's the greatest ever to play for City. So I'm sure he'll get a right send off. And I think one of the only things is, and look, I don't think it will make a difference, but these players' legacies are maybe potentially going to be harmed a tiny little bit because of seeing Kyle Walker in the state he was, seeing Ilkay Gundogan come back. That was City's treble-winning captain, and he left under a fairy tale ending. So, I think that maybe the legacies, but that's a question for 5 years' time, probably not now.
Players that are not declining with Real Madrid are Rodrigo, Mbappe, Vinicius Jr. Best front three in Europe, would you say, Farouk?
Definitely, and I'm gonna say that's the best. I'm gonna add Jude Bellingham into that as well, because like Jude is like more of a fourth member of that attack, and it's when you look at it, it's a bit crazy because you look at these players and they all perform best on the left as left wingers, and here you have Kylian Mbappe playing through the middle as a 9, and you have Rodrigo playing through the right as a 11. So it's really interesting. So that's the thing I think also about Real Madrid is that I feel like as long as this front three or front four are able to do their job well, then the team is good to go, like as long as they're able to click. So this is the issue we've always had at the beginning of the season, is that we've seen players as individuals perform in different games, but never as all four of them, being on their game, as we saw across the 2 ties against Manchester City. I guess, the Champions League does a trick on them when you play for Real Madrid, Well, this is the thing, like if this front four are able to perform, honestly, I do feel like there is nothing that's unsurmountable. Like we might not be in the best, run of form, but I mean, this is the thing, even Man City's fans will attest to this, Real Madrid doesn't need to be at the best to win games. We need those moments of individual brilliance, as we saw, with a couple of goals from Kylian Mbappe last night as well. So these are players who are the very best in what they do. So you just need 2-3 of them to play together, and you're able to win the game, irrespective of how bad you are defensively, irrespective of who plays we have our best central midfielder playing as a right back. We have an academic player who 2 months ago had even no hint of playing for Real Madrid, starting as a centre back. So to be able to negate all of this, you have as I said again, with Carlo Ancelotti, putting players, in the position where they thrive. So when you have this front three, this front four, who, in my opinion, they're the best players in the world. I don't think there is anyone. Maybe Haaland is the only person who you can think of as an attacker who, has a chance of being, competing with these guys. But other than that, you have these players and they just get a job done. And that's the great thing about Real Madrid, is that we do not, build a system. We buy players and fit them in. So you just buy a player and you just throw him. I mean, last year we won with Vinicius and Rodrigo, and this year we're adding Kylian Mbappe to the team. And you're thinking, okay, how can you fit this into here? And here we are today, like Kylian Mbappe is just coming off of a hat-trick against Manchester City at the Bernabeu.
And I'm not even going to ask you if you expect Real Madrid to go on and win the Champions League, because I can tell from the way you talked about your team that you fully expect it to happen. Amos, Man City obviously out of the tournament. We've got Liverpool on the horizon. What is left for City this season?
Probably just finding rhythm. And whether that means finishing inside the top 4/5, depending on how English teams do in European competition, whether that means putting together a run of 4 matches where there isn't a sort of a dreadful collapse towards the end, whether that means going on and potentially lifting the FA Cup, because that's a competition that it sounds weird to say it. This is like we're in sort of uncharted territory for City, but it's has opened up for them, because you look at the teams left in the competition. I think on paper you'd look at City and say, yeah, they're the favourites, but based on performances this season, Aston Villa, Newcastle, I wouldn't fancy necessarily in a one-off game. Obviously, United are still there, and the pair of them have got history. So there's an option that perhaps maybe City could get to a FA Cup semi-final or a final. I think you just got to, and this is the most cliche managerial talk of all time. You genuinely do have to take it one game at a time, starting with Liverpool at the weekend, and that's a chance, I feel like, for City. Obviously, we saw how they reacted against Newcastle. That was probably the most complete performance of the entire campaign. You're coming up against the league leaders who have shown frailties in the last couple of weeks, drawing to Everton, drawing to Aston Villa, haven't necessarily looked like they're free-flowing selves from earlier on in the campaign. So that is a definite chance. And yeah, just sort of cobbling together something and looking like a functioning team week on week, and not a great team one week and then an absolute amateur show the next.
Well, there you have it. Manchester City fans hoping that they can look functional at least for the rest of the season, as Real Madrid sail off into the sunset after that 16th Champions League trophy. Thank you, Farouk from Let's Be Real, for joining me, and Amos Murphy from the City Ramble. And we will be back soon with another talkSPORT Fan Network Settle the Score.